The country of Mexico shares its northern border with the United States and its southern borders with Guatemala and Belize. Mexico frequently appears in global publications and media outlets due to its close proximity with the U.S. and the nature of its current and historical political and economic fields. Its GDP ranks 14th on a global scale in nominal terms and has experienced significant growth in recent years due to changes in political leadership and new trade arrangements. Over the last 100 years, the Mexican economy has experienced three significant transitions. The first occurred when Mexico altered its economy from being primarily agricultural-based to being an industrially-based one. This took place in the 1940s during World War II. Mexico made the switch from the production of agricultural products to machinery and industrial supplies in order to provide the Allied forces with the necessary means to overthrow the Axis. The second transition occurred when Mexico shifted from a closed economy to an open economy in 1985. The government decided to reduce tariffs on imports and increase the amount of exports that flowed through Mexico at this time. This transition gained prowess when Mexico implemented the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA, and experienced exponential growth in profitable trade with minimal barriers with the United States and Canada. The third transition took place during the 1970s and 80s and involved Mexico switching from an economy that pursues public ownership to one that pursues private ownership. This third transition caused Mexico to accrue a large amount of foreign debt due to the government purchasing businesses that were later run inefficiently and sold off. This transition caused corruption on all levels of the political hierarchy and led to public unrest and outcry. Overall, Mexico has had many ebbs and flows economically over the past century. It has made great progress by opening its economy and conducting global trade, but these successes are marked with corruption and civil unrest amongst the people. Mexico is currently working on resolving its two main international issues: illegal drug trafficking and illegal immigration. These issues originate in Mexico but affect the countries that surround Mexico and have significantly altered the political and economic situation of Mexico. They have caused instability in the Mexican economy, but recent changes such as NAFTA are slowly correcting the economy and have led to an increase in foreign direct investment and a rising GDP. Mexico has reduced trade barriers with other North American countries and many Latin American countries, and currently has more active free trade agreements than any other country. Mexico has 77 embassies and 67 consulates around the world that allow it to maintain these trade relations with many different nations.
Some basic statistics on the Mexican economy. Its economic sectors are broken up into three: agriculture, industry, and service. Service makes up the majority, with 60% of the Mexican economy dedicated to service. Its natural resources include petroleum, silver, gold, copper, lead, zinc, and timber. Some more statistics. The unemployment rate is around 5.3%, and its inflation is around 4%. Its unemployment is steadily decreasing, however has seen a slight pickup. Its GDP is the 14th largest nominal GDP at 1.85 trillion, and it's growing at around 1%. In regards to trade, it trades mostly with the United States. It imports mostly industrial equipment and machines. It exports agriculture and manufactured goods. Its foreign direct investment is focused mainly in telecommunication and energy.
Mexico experienced a huge trade liberalization from 1989 to 2000. This affected domestic prices and labor income differently both across income groups and geographically diverse groups. It lowered relative prices of non-animal agricultural products and reduced households' agricultural income, thus widening the gap between rural and urban areas. It also had a diverse effect on wage rates. Skilled workers have experienced an increase in wages, while unskilled workers have experienced a decrease in wages. States closer to the United States border have gained threefold more than the lesser developed states in the South. However, overall, it reduced poverty in the country by about 3%, bringing 3 million individuals out of poverty. Mexico has a strong belief that as long as the FDI is increased, migration to other countries will decrease. This was one of their main points in writing the NAFTA agreement. On average, a doubling of FDI will lead to a 1.5 to 2% decrease in migration. Mexico doubled FDI from 2012 to 2013, with nearly $35.2 billion of FDI.
As one of the world's most dynamic economies, Mexico has endured a historical pattern of large economic growth followed by crippling economic stagnation. In the past, Mexico was primarily an agrarian economy, with much of their population devoted to labor as small farmers. During this period, state enterprises dominated the domestic economy, and agriculture accounted for more than 25% of their GDP. For over the last 20 years, Mexico has managed to distance itself from this archaic economic structure by focusing on industrialization and lowering agriculture. This has allowed them to emerge as one of the world's largest developing economies and join the ranks of other global economic powerhouses such as Canada, South Korea, and Australia. As a result of Mexico's surprising ascent to economic power, this has led my team to question what are the exact factors and policies contributing to Mexico's recent economic state, and is their global success permanent in the long run? Since the introduction of the North American Free Trade Agreement in 1997, Mexico's $1.3 trillion economy has become increasingly less focused on agricultural products and more oriented towards the manufacturing of electronic and industrial goods. For the most part, this shift in the market structure can be explained by the fact that Mexico's highly labor-intensive economy is now being complemented by an influx of highly skilled labor from domestic colleges. According to Chris Anderson of the New York Times, Mexico now graduates some 115,000 engineering students per year, roughly 3 times as many as the U.S. on a per capita basis. Mexico's highly skilled labor has allowed them to expand into other industries that require higher levels of expertise, such as automobiles and electronics. As a result, Mexico's competitively low wage and abundant supply of skilled labor has allowed them to start competing with other low-cost suppliers of manufactured goods, such as China. Some recent examples of this have been the migration of multinational corporations like Nissan from China to Mexico. Other factors affecting Mexico's emergence onto the international scene have been improvements upon their domestic infrastructure and shifts within their market structures. Improvements within their infrastructure have ensured more efficient migration of domestic labor, while in terms of their market structure, recent liberalization and privatization of certain Mexican industries have prompted increased levels of foreign direct investment into their country. Notable examples of this shift have been the partial privatization of Mexico's traditionally state-owned oil industry. On a side note, political instability within the country have distracted Mexico from achieving its optimal economic growth. The presence of cartels and political corruption have resulted in a distorted judicial system and have been one of the main detractors limiting the flow of foreign investment into Mexico's economy. For Mexico, international engagement has grown tremendously within the last couple of years and is one of the primary reasons behind Mexico's emergence as an economic power. Since the liberalization of their economy, Mexico has expanded its international network to include 12 free trade agreements with more than 40 countries, including the US, European Union, Singapore, and much of South America. Currently, these free trade agreements cover about 90% of Mexico's international trade, and have ensured Mexico's gradual economic expansion without the fear of trade barriers. However, the North American Free Trade Agreement NAFTA has been the only exception to this and that has had mixed effects upon the economy. For Mexico, the introduction of NAFTA has caused exports and FDI to triple as well as Mexican productivity to rise by 80%. However, at the cost of free trade, Mexico's economic growth was partially stagnated, due to Mexico's economy being tied to the US during a period of recession. As a result, Mexican economic growth averaged only 1.6% between 1992 and 2007. Mexico's domestic firms also suffered decreases in investment because they could not compete against subsidized US goods being imported over the border. With the exception of NAFTA, Mexico's engagement with the international community has been a source of immeasurable economic growth, and will continue to be so in the foreseeable future.